All right, ladies and germs, I told you that I'd make a video on these candles that I use, and that's what I'm going to do right now. And you'll notice in my tweets that I'll show these candles. And the first thing that I want to call your attention to is that this is an 8 range. See where this says 8 range? So this is not based on time. This is based on price. So 8 range means nothing more than each one of these candles is 2 full S&P points. Okay? So an 8 range is 8 ticks, which constitutes 2 full S&P 500 points. And I use these range charts for a variety of reasons, but one of the main reasons is that because they're a range chart, you're not going to get a bunch of candle patterns that are going to just be contrary to the previous candle pattern. Very rarely do you get a whole lot. You might get 3 or 4 different candle patterns, and that's it. And the reason, this is Friday's action right here that I put up here. And the reason I put this up here is there were a couple of things that went on that I can show you while also acclimating you towards what these candles are. Okay, and it pinned tweet on my Twitter page goes through or gives you an explanation of what everything in these candles is, but I'm going to do it again. Okay, so all of these numbers along here on the left-hand side of the bar, those are all the orders that went off on the bid side. All these numbers over here, those are all the orders that went off on the offer side. And you can feel free to look up bid and offer so that you can determine what each one of those means. The most important part of all of my work is this blue shading. See this blue shading here, the blue here, the blue here, the blue here. All that is the point of control. And the point of control is nothing more than where the most amount of volume went off inside that bar. The most number of contracts that were traded. That is the focal point inside each one of these candles. And it is paramount. If you were to pick anything out of all of this stuff and you had to wipe everything else out off the screen and you had to pick one thing that you could have up on the screen, it would be the point of control. Because it's going to tell you where the intensity took place. But we use this in combination with things. The point of control. The point of control isn't just a one and done kind of thing. So we've got the orders that were on the bid. We've got the orders that were on the offer. We've got the point of control. And then up here, this is the total number of contracts that were traded within this bar. So 10,173 contracts were traded inside this bar. Over here, you had 24,000, a little over 24,000 contracts that went off. So that's all that is the volume. And we'll go over at a later date what that volume will tell us. You can see that we had 24,000 here and we had 10,000 here, and then another 10,000 here. That's telling us something. Especially if I scroll back here and pay it, remember this 24,088. Why won't this let me scroll? I don't know. It won't let me scroll right now. Of course, right when I'm in the video, this thing decides to freeze up. Good Lord. Okay, anyway, we'll go over volume at a different time. Okay, I told you that point of control is the most important thing within each one of these candles. The 2 other most important things are right here. And these numbers that are in the boxes, like this 599 and this negative 496 and this negative 930, and this positive 1300. That is called the COT, C-O-T, which stands for Commitment of Traders. And each one, that COT is telling you the commitment or the effort that was made inside this bar. All right, that's all that's doing. I think of it kind of like pressure, that there were, because it's green, that means that bulls were much more active and they were really trying to push the issue. Okay? That's all the COT means. And then this number down here, this negative 263 or this negative 438 or this positive 1239, that is the delta within that bar. So right here, everything that went up inside that bar, when you subtract the buying from the selling, you get a positive delta. So you had 1,239 more contracts that were bullish. Here you had negative 438. Here you had negative 263. The number alone doesn't mean anything, but when you see something like this, the 599 on the COT, which I told you is the measure of pressure. If it's green, that means that the bulls are trying to push it. If it's red, it means that the bears are trying to push it. Well, if you have a negative number on the delta, which means this bar actually is negative, and you have a positive COT, that is a divergence, and that needs to be paid attention to. Okay? The only time you need to pay attention to that divergence is when the point of control is outside of the candle box. Like you see this green box right here. The point of control is outside of that box. And you had another one right smack here, except on the flip side. Here you had a positive delta and a negative COT. So that tells you that the majority of volume that went up inside here was for buyers, but the real winners inside this bar were the bears. And you can see exactly what happened after we had that divergence. We trended lower. So you had a signal here, and then you had a flip signal on the very next bar. So really, that's the reason that I brought up this particular from Friday, because there's a couple of things I can show you. I can show you these signals right here, right? This positive of the COT and this negative of the delta, boom. That is a buy signal with the point of control outside the body. And then we had a sell signal here. We had negative 496 on the COT. And we had 105 on the delta. And the point of control was outside of the box. Now, if this is confusing to you, don't worry about it. Just watch the video a couple times, and it'll come to you, because all this stuff is telling you a story. And that's what I always try and convey, is that this is just one giant story that's going on. Oh, yeah, now it's going to work for me. Okay, so it's one giant story that's going on, and you just need to follow the story. That's it. That's all you really got to do. So this was just a small snippet to get you acclimated with these candles, so that when you see them on my tweets, you know what it is that I'm referring to. And we'll get into some other stuff that's, I don't want to say it's a little more complicated, but I want to leave you with this. When you look at these candles and you see all these numbers on the bid side, all these numbers on the offer side, Don't worry about it. Okay, it looks more complicated than it really is. All this is the shit that's going on. And what you want to look at, that's what the COD is for, that's what the delta is for, and that's what the point of control is for, is to take all of that information in there and put it into a format that you can understand numerically. And you don't have to sit, look, in the old days, we used to have to do the shit by hand. Now, with technology, all this stuff is done for you. Now, the markets were a lot slower back when I started in the early 80s. So it was relatively simple to do it by hand. But now, these markets are so quick and there's so many participants that there's no way you could do this by hand. But I just wanted to give you, I really didn't go over the imbalances, but I'll do that in another video because I'm sure this one is running a little long. But I just wanted to give you an insight into these candles. All right, with that, I will say later.